Hey everyone, Dylan Gowan here. Welcome back to another installment of Overkill Reviews, BangerTV's weekly heavy metal review show. Before we dive into the review, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to check out our ongoing Patreon campaign. And yep, I am still stuck in quarantine. Just trying to be as creative as possible throughout this whole coronavirus pandemic. Hopefully not getting like I did in the last video, just and something tells me I am going to get I know I am. Yeah, it's funny. I was looking through some of the comments on the last video, and apparently I look like Beethoven. I don't really quite see the resemblance, but it is what it is. Normally on this channel, I talk about prog bands or folk metal bands, but today I'm here to talk about a symphonic metal band. It's the brand new 4th studio album by Dark Sarah called Grim, out today on Napalm Records. So if you don't know who Dark Sarah are, let me tell you a little bit about them. The band formed in 2012 in Helsinki, Finland, and have formed quite the cult following amongst symphonic metal fans. In fact, several of their releases have been funded through Indiegogo, and the fans continue to show up through each campaign. It really just shows the loyalty that these fans have to Dark Sarah. Grim kind of follows in that same tradition as well, being funded through Indiegogo, and in fact, the band reached 99% of their initial goal. The band, of course, plays symphonic metal, which draws influences of classical music, of musical theater, of opera, and various styles of metal. To me, it seems like symphonic metal needs to have something new in order for it to really kind of grow. It feels like bands like Nightwish and Xandria, while they've had really good, solid album releases, it feels like the songs that they've recently put out have all been kind of the same. And it feels like they all have a formula that works for them, but nothing that really kind of takes the genre to the next level when it comes from a songwriter's perspective, because it just feels like a lot of parts are being repeated over and over again. So I'm hoping that Dark Sarah on this release are able to break that mold and try something new on this release. So, do they do that? Let's find out. The band's last 3 releases were all following this ongoing storyline that's very fantasy-based, and if you want to learn more about it, you can check it out on their website, as well as their other old lyric videos that are very dramatic and have this kind of heavy, like, musical theater element to it, which is, kind of odd, but it is what it is. Grim is a completely new story that doesn't follow the trilogy that was just recently wrapped up. This is a completely new idea, new storyline, new kind of everything. I know fans kind of theorize that this is like another part of the initial story, and it could possibly be, but that's up to Dark Sarah. I digress. Let's get into the music. There are 2 notable highlights on this release, one being Melancholia and the other being Morgue. What I did like about Melancholia is the energy of the track, how it keeps you musically engaged because there's a lot of really cool ideas going on. I did like that it had a ton of energy. Like I said, it's got a great emphasis on groove. It really is musically interesting. The only problem that I had with it was the ending, how it kind of slowly fades out after you had this really nice build into the ending. Aside from that kind of weak part in the song, the rest of it is really good. So great job. That should have been also the start of the album, because it just, it really grabs your attention. Now, the other song, Mork, again, has great energy. It's got, there's a lot of really nice build-up parts, but what I really liked about it is their incorporation of other styles within that track, one being ragtime, funny enough. I mean, that's what I got from it. It sounded like ragtime to me. but I liked it how they used that part sparingly throughout, and it kind of breaks up the chaos a little bit. I just think that those 2 songs really stood out on this record. The rest of the songs, unfortunately, not so much. Not to say that the other songs were bad, but they weren't as memorable as those 2 tracks. Like, they had really good sections, but the overall song wasn't really musically interesting. Like, I did like the halftime groove in the Chosen One, did like a couple of ideas in the Hex, but again, the other parts that kind of were building towards those sections were kind of underwhelming and weren't as musically interesting as those 2 songs. So the rest of the record just kind of felt a little dragged out, and it kind of felt a little, boring, unfortunately. There's one song that did stick out, but not for the right reasons, and that was La Folle Verte. I just didn't really like the carnival parts that they threw in. It just felt like, that kind of style has been overused, and it just, really takes you out of the record. And it just feels like anytime I was re-listening to this album, that was one song I would often skip over because it's just doesn't really grab your attention. And just the keyboard parts that they throw in are just kind of annoying, which brings me to another part of this album that I didn't like, which was the keyboard choices that they had throughout the entire album really takes you out of the overall experience. Like, I get it. What they're trying to do is they're trying to use the keyboards to help elevate their songwriting, but instead it kind of distracts you from it, because they have these like weird techno parts that just jump at you out of nowhere when it's like, okay, you're in a decent part, and then all of a sudden this keyboard kind of just like completely takes over that section. It just completely ruins it. Again, the other songs are very predictable. They're not very innovative. It just feels like Melancholia and Mork were the 2 non-filler songs, and the rest were just kind of glorified demos. Hello, darkness, my old friend. It just didn't do it for me on this record. Sorry. Overall, it just wasn't really my thing. I think that Dark Sarah have a potential. They have, with those 2 songs that I did like, I still think that they still need to find something that separates themselves from the rest of the pack when it comes to symphonic metal. And I know I use that word often in this review, but it feels like to me that a lot of bands share these same kind of song structure ideas and lyrical themes, and I get it. That's just part of the appeal of the genre. And it reminds me of that joke in The Simpsons where there's a band that's playing in Times Square, and the host gets up and goes, "Thank you so much, Whitesnake." "We're not Whitesnake, dude. We're Poison. I thought we were Quiet Riot. It says here we're Rat." And it's kind of like that with the genre at the moment. It's like, we're not Nightwish, dude. We're Xandria. We're not Xandria. We're Delane. It says here we're Dark Sarah. I want to see something more other than just the stereotypical things that you find within symphonic metal. And I think that this album is just another carbon copy of just symphonic metal. So there's nothing really new that they're bringing, except for, what I heard on Mork, which I liked, and I hope that they continue to expand that on future releases. It's not that the musicians are bad or the production's bad. It's just that the songs on this record are not very strong, apart from those 2 songs that I mentioned previously. So Dark Sarah, for me, gets a 2.5 out of 5 skulls. All right, time for the shoutouts. Here are a couple of awesome albums that came out today. First up, we have Rumahoy with Time to Party out on Napalm Records. I really hope that is a reference to Winter Sun, because that is freaking hilarious. Next up, we have Guardian of Lightning with their new album Cosmos Tree, which is out today on Eclipse Records. Then we have Thyrant with their new album Katabasis out on Indie Recordings. And finally, we have the re-release of one of my favorite albums that came out last year, which is Wilderun's a critically acclaimed record, Veil of Imagination, out today as well on Century Media. So what did you think of Dark Sarah's new album? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'll be back to talk about a band that you guys probably don't expect me to review, but I'm very excited to talk about them. So until next time, guys, see you soon.